Okay, it's carried. Thank you very much for that. It was a good long debate. We now have Paul Robinson, who's going to talk to us about health, safety and well-being, a bit of which we need now. Thank you for the two presenters for the last lot. Paul, come to this. Has been referred from the Audit and Risk Committee. So if you're one of the lucky councillors who endured that last week, well done, you might remember it. So we're hopefully going to have a shortened version of it, because it has been referred to, considered and supported. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. I will keep this brief and assume that it has been read. This is our standard report to the governing body referred through the Audit and Risk Committee. There are three parts to this report. The first speaks to the effectiveness of controls related to health and safety enterprise risk. There are a couple of items in there which we have listed as unsatisfactory, which you would have noted. Those relate to a raising of the bar once we identified where we were at in relation to risk management across the organisation and a degree of inconsistency. We have now put in place programs of work to correct that and bring that up to a higher standard. That work has been referred within previous reports and we'll continue to provide updates on that. The second part of the report again refers to some of the initiatives that we do have in place across the organisation, and they are tracking well. One of our major projects, which I've referred to in previous reports, Project Header, has come to an end, and we have achieved the objectives that we had set out to achieve, and we've come in on time and on budget for that. The final part of the report deals with key performance indicators for health, safety and wellbeing, and you'll note again that violence and aggression in the workplace remains our highest risk. Apart from that, happy to take any questions.
It's entirely possible that there are none. So that's probably because we asked them last week. So you can take it as a pat on the back, I would say. As Councillor Fletcher's is hovering over having one. No? Oh,
no, I was just going to move.
Councillor Winston wants to move the acceptance of it. Well, well done, Councillor Fletcher. I'm going to second that, having listened to it in much detail last week. Councillor Hills, you want a question?
It was just a quick question. I always ask it, but around the pastoral care, there seems to be really good supports, which is great to see. Are we concerned to see that uplift in access of wellbeing and pastoral support, or is that because there is more available? And I guess, are we doing a watching brief on the next 6 months around a lot of uncertainty, potentially with not as much uncertainty as the last annual budget, but again coming up and how that affects staff wellbeing and other changes, I guess, with the events we've had this year?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Yes, we are continuing to monitor pastoral care usage. Because it's a new service, we don't know whether or not we're just tapping into what was an existing need and offsetting some of our EAP usage, so that's a possibility. It's also possible that it's increased in demand. We don't know the difference yet, as it's still only 6 months old. We'll know more over time to see whether or not we're seeing greater issues appearing and exceeding the demand, exceeding the availability and the capacity of that team.
Thank you. And do we provide opportunities over the summer period and holiday time for people to access easily, even when they're not at work? If there are things that, I know it's a tough time for some people after a tough year.
Absolutely. So we have scheduled for that pastoral care team to be on call and available over that period. We also have EAP continuing to be available and providing supports. We've provided our kaimahi with access to a number of options, and we've sent that out via email and on our kotahi pages.
Kia ora. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Good question. It was raised last week. It is a new service. And, I was thinking I wish I'd been aware of it when I had that large box of vegetables thrown at me while I was cleaning up. Okay. It's been... Yes, it has. I'm going to we note the Council's Health, Safety and Wellbeing Performance Report, which was presented to the Audit and Risk Committee last week. And forward the report to all local boards for their information. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. Thank you, Paul. We'll go to item 15 because the draft Te Puna Maunga Authority, Dominic and Nick, come on, you two. The floor is yours. We've all had this and read it, but I think you should run over the major points if that's okay, please. And we note that you've won an award, which was canvassed this morning, so congratulations for that. So it's not quite as bad as what some people think. So there you are. Right, Dominic? And Nick?
Well, kia ora tātou. I'll just, as directed there, I'll cover the main points, Your Worship. So the legislation, of course, requires agreement on the ops plan between the Te Puna Maunga Authority and the Auckland Council every year. This stage is about agreement to put a draft operational plan into consultation. So that's the matter before you today, is whether to agree to consulting on the draft operational plan. And once, if you were to agree to that, then the next step would be the consultation itself. Of course, the council has its process, and of course, the Te Puna Maunga Authority does a separate independent process as well. And so I think I've always thought that was a positive part of the consultation, that there was two strands to it. And so that's what I would cover about the background to that, and I might pass it over to Nick to cover the finance part of the ops plan.
Kia ora, Dominic, thank you, and tēnā koutou. I guess the main point I wanted to point out is that we are actually looking at a reduction overall in our costs towards the outer years. So over the last, I guess the authority's been around since 2014. And basically towards 2007, we believe that in our capital space, our infrastructure program will start to, we'll be completing that and look towards moving to more of a phase of overall renewals of our capital infrastructure and perhaps a signature project here and there. But overall, we'll be looking at that as I guess the key difference in what we've presented in previous years, and also looking at increasing more of our operational costs, operational program, because to look after consequential OPEX of the infrastructure we have been building, that has allowed us to win those awards, and to look at more of a program of activations, events, and engagement with the community in mana whenua.
Deputy Mayor's got a question.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a couple actually. So I'm happy for this to go out for consultation, but I've got a couple of questions to help me understand so I can help with the consultation in my ward. And I'm going to ask about Ohenirau, Mount Hudson. So my community loves big trees, right? And if you're going to take them out, they want to know, just be straight up and say. And if you have a reason, they want to know. So I want to understand the vegetation management. It says including control of Dutch elms and matured vegetation along Remuera Road. How can my community understand if that means the removal of large trees, and if so, how many, and how does that look? Where can we find the detail behind that? That's my first question, and I've got a second question.
Would you like me to answer that question now? Yes, so that there is more around the general maintenance of those trees on Remuera Road. So that includes, we do remove trees that are affected with Dutch elm disease. That is by order of actually the Auckland Council to the Te Puna Maunga Authority under the Biosecurity Act. So we don't have any choice of doing that. That has been ongoing now for a number of years. The wording in there is not around removal of those trees, it's more around maintenance, particularly around the road corridor. So when there are trees with branches overhanging, the road corridor that needs to be maintained. That's the type of work that we mean there. We can look at the wording of that in terms of making a slight amendment to be more deliberate. That's not about the vegetation restoration program, which is more long-term, and we haven't actually looked at any works in that space at Ohanido at the moment. I would note that last year in those storms we did have some very significant large trees come down, and there are some very old aging pine trees at the top of that maunga. So we do continue to keep an eye on those, and if they are presenting either a health and safety risk or risk to archaeology, then we will be removing them, but we will be informing the public if that is the case, as we have been doing so.
Yeah, thanks. So I hope I'm being really, really clear. You know, the fear of the unknown is because you're not detailed enough. So I just really want to make sure that when you go out for consultation, the material is clear enough so that the man on the street kind of can understand where you're coming from. Which brings me to my next question, which is the perimeter fire breaks. I think everyone understands that that's a sensible thing to do. But I have been asked this question, so forgive me, I'm the messenger here. And the question that was put to me is this another way of, you know, you removing exotic trees in another way and calling it a fire break. So again, if the community could see what the fire break work was going to look like and that it didn't touch mature trees, I don't think they would be so upset. So again, it's just some clarity. Rightly or wrongly, and let's hope it was wrongly, that there is there can be in some parts of Auckland a concern around what you're doing with regards to mature trees. So I'm just trying to put a lot of that to bed and get a real clear message of what you're doing, being open, being transparent, and helping people understand the reasons for what you're doing. And currently, those few words in this plan don't give all the answers. So how can we make that better?
So as part of our works with fire breaks, we do, so just being very clear, fire break works involves mowing a fire break strip around where there are houses around the maunga, so it does not involve any tree removals. It happens very regularly on our maunga. We do it more often in the summertime when the fire risk is more extreme, and perhaps once or twice during the winter time. And it's really just mowing a 10-metre strip to basically protect the maunga from houses that are on private properties around the maunga. As part of that plan, we send letters out every year at the beginning of fire season. We engage with Fens New Zealand, who audit our fire breaks and make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing, and also to approve that those are going to be effective. And we send, as I said, we send out a communication program as part of that. It really is purely an operational thing, so we haven't really thought that we required any further information or any more detail. I mean, we can have a look at it, but I think that there's just some speculation there that's not really based on what the actual program is.
But look, supplementary, Your Worship, I think that's a really good answer. And if you had a key in here and said perimeter fire breaks are just mowing strips, that vegetation maintenance program is just to help overhangs for pedestrianisation or disease. Do you know what I mean? Just front foot it, be up front and help take the doubt away. I think that would just help. I'm just into trying to make things really open and able to be understood by all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good question, good answers. Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Turner, Hills and Walker.
Thank you. I was just changed my question because of what the Deputy Mayor had to say and been just racing through the thing here. I just asked, I did challenge this in one of the Te Puna Monga Authority meetings. So going to that annual vegetation maintenance program / one figure, this one here is for One Tree Hill is only 18,000, but I remember seeing some very large ones. If we could break that down into more sub-compartments, how much for chopping down trees, how much for pruning trees, how much for planting small vegetation, and that would be very, very good. Would we be able to do that?
Through the chair, it is actually broken down in our capital works program, which is our vegetation management program. that has followed in that Capital Works Network White program. That is where we're talking about the vegetation restoration program. That has quite some detail in it. It refers back to our integrated management plan, which was a publicly notified process where it detailed what we were doing with regards to the large works, which includes tree removals and vegetation restoration, where we have planted over 175,000 trees over the last few years. And it is specified in that. The vegetation maintenance, which is outlined in the operational section of this report, is purely talking about operational maintenance of our trees and our maintenance. So we can have a look at the wording, but I do think that our vegetation restoration program works is clearly outlined in a number of documents that all have been publicly notified, including our integrated management plan, our tupuna strategies, and our operational plan, which is now, relatively consistent. We haven't actually changed this plan or what the wording in it now for several years, but have been trying to make that more clear every time we have.
Thank you. No, I'm just trying to make sure, like the Deputy Mayor, that it's as clear as we can possibly make it. That helps stop conspiracy theories.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think in your case, that the fullness of your disclosure of your results is a very supportive thing to do. And so, yeah, good answers. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Mayor. And it is funny, Waka Kotahi come and sit here and we don't ask them about the 162 hectares of forest they removed for the Pūhoi to walk with motorway, or the hundreds of kauri and totara that were hundreds of years old that were removed. But anyway, I just, because of the tree maintenance issues that the processes you go through, as far as I know, are the same, but you're more public about it than Auckland Transport and Parks, right? Because as far as I know, Auckland Transport and Parks are removing trees in the same way as you, if they are dangerous or if they are diseased or if they are pests. I know our community facilities team are doing that all the time. They just don't tell everyone like you are. Is that correct? You're taking the similar procedures as the other parts of council?
With regards to our operational program of reactive tree removals due to storm responses, due to health and safety issues, due to their pest management status, I can confirm that we do follow the same processes and do the same things as Auckland Council does. With our vegetation management program, we have to apply for resource consents, which we do, and we have gone through a publicly notified consultation process which backs up what we're doing, and that has now been complete, and it was unanimously approved by the Tupuna Authority in 2022.
Thank you. And sorry, I missed it before. How many trees have you planted since you've been around?
Approximately 175,000.
And what is in the
plants?
And what is in the next year?
I would. We're still probably calculating that, but I would suggest would be around the 30,000 mark.
Cool. And my last question, in the management plan, it's more about the natural features, but are there discussing with people around how we celebrate the Maunga more, and what sort of opportunities are you looking forward? Now you're sort of saying you're coming to the end-ish of your capital works. Are you going to be looking at more events, more storytelling, more working with Tātaki Auckland Unlimited on festivals? I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like we're not potentially celebrating the Maunga as much as we could be. Maybe not to the world, but to Aucklanders especially. No,
thank you for that question, Councillor. There is line items in there around events. There is line items around there around an education program. And I would like to note that we are doing quite a lot of work at the moment with Tātaki. We presented to Tātaki and the tourism industry just 2 weeks ago, and that was favourably received. And we believe there are opportunities in that space. So yes, we are increasing that, and over time, as I said, we're shifting more away from the infrastructure program that we are doing, the programs around the vegetation restoration, and more towards a program of storytelling, allowing people to engage with the Maunga, and really enabling mana whenua to be able to tell their stories for themselves.
Kia ora, thank you and the team for all the work. It's another phenomenal year under really hard circumstances with the storms and the slips and everything. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Walker, please.
Sure. So, first of all, just a question, and it just goes to your mention of trees. My understanding is that the great majority of the plants are grasses and flaxes and shrubs. There's a relatively small number of actual trees that are being planted. Is that correct?
What we do is we follow a program of ecological restoration that has been designed by ecologists. There are cultural plants in there. When you are restoring a forest, you don't go out and just plant large podocarp trees. That won't work. What you look at doing is planting a pioneer species so that you can build a forest canopy. Within all of those ecological restoration programs, yes, there are flaxes, yes, there are small plants, but they all build up into an ecosystem, which will eventually eventuate into a WF7 pūrere forest or a particular ecotype that we are looking for.
Sure.
When we have done that, we have also planted a number of significantly large trees, including kahikatea, tōtara, pūrere, many others. So yes, there are some shrubs, but we follow an ecological program, and there are larger trees as well. When you go out to some of our maunga, you'll see that we've enjoyed quite some growth in the last 3 to 5 years as we've been doing this, and they're looking very, very well.
Sure. I'm familiar with the maunga. I grew up on one of the maunga. One of the issues that I'd point out, and it is of concern, is that a number of plants, particularly grasses and flaxes and the like, produce a significant amount of vegetation that dies and is highly combustible. I know that from personal experience, and Mānuka and so on are, well, it's actually probably an immigrant from Australia, but it's highly combustible. So I just want to raise the issue around what your planning is for instances where some of those maungas could actually go up in flames. So I don't necessarily need a response to that, but I just want to put it on the record because it is an ongoing concern I've got. The particular question that I'd like answered is, what is the financial split between the budget for vegetation removal and planting? And the reason I'm asking that, and you've also seen it from some other councillors, is there have been trees that have been removed in the past, substantial mature trees, and there's been a public outcry. There's been a court case that has had issues around transparency and engagement. So there's an opportunity to actually engage and give people the information. And I think that's important. The other thing that concerns me around the long-term ecology of the maunga is if you go back further in time in New Zealand, I mean, at one point in time, New Zealand, parts of New Zealand were colonised by eucalypts. At another epoch, significant areas were covered in Norfolk pines, for example. And with climate change, circumstances are changing. And as much and all as I really like native trees, in urban settings sometimes it's difficult, particularly when you've got environments, and the maunga are quite inhospitable environments for establishing plants because the soils are often dry and volcanic. So it would be useful to have some reporting on how you're coping with that, because often I think the ecological guidelines don't necessarily do it. So I just want to put that on the table. But coming back to my question around, can we get a breakdown of the elimination of plants, the removal of vegetation, and then the revegetation separately?
So just rewinding to the beginning there, I just want to point out that we do work with FENZ on our planting programs. FENZ have developed a list of trees that are less combustible, and we plant those around areas where we have housing, for example, because actually the fire risk is not on the maunga, it actually starts off the maunga on those houses. So we do follow that plan. If we are planting more combustible trees that have a higher fire risk, we plant those in the middle of the plantings. So on the outer you see the others, and that's why you also see shrubs and the like, because of their fire risk. So those are often the most visible ones that are on the outer of it. So, and again, we do go through an auditing process. So this year, FENS went out and looked at all of our plantings, and they were very satisfied that we had mitigated that risk as much as possible. With regards to the financial breakdown last year, we spent approximately $360,000 on tree removals, and we spent approximately $310,000 on tree plantings. That's as part of that capital works program. We are slightly delayed. I would envisage that the ratio for the next year is roughly the same. What is also worth noting, of course, is that we also spent $300,000 on reactive tree removals. That was $290,000 on trees that were destroyed in the storm, and that also came at the risk of a number of significant cultural sites. So, for example, in some of those sites, midden had been exposed, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid doing. Another $94,000 was removals of trees that presented health and safety risks. What I think will happen over time is that the financial shift will change. Where we have those on maunga that have no exotic trees, we actually find the natives hold up a lot better, and we haven't had that same level of remedial tree removals that has been required with the exotic trees. So I think over time you'll start to see a shift in those numbers, where you'll see a shift from, I guess, operational funding of reactive tree removals lessening, and as I said, towards the end of the infrastructure program, we are lessening our capital works program over. So in a way, I guess there is some savings to be made there. I can't talk beyond what I know about the Tupuna Maunga in terms of the tree the tree types. I do know that those tree forests were WF7 Pūriri forest types in the past, and we are actually getting some really substantial growth on the maunga at the moment, and I have every confidence that we'll be able to continue with that work. We report on a public paper every year on our planting program and what we have achieved in that, and those are available to members of this council as well as to the public.
So, supplementary question. As it goes to the breakdown between removal and revegetation, can we get a breakdown for each monga? Is that difficult?
Got the name of each tree?
No, not each tree.
Are you going to ask about the 7,000 that community facilities removed?
Hang on, you guys. I shouldn't have interrupted. I humble apologies, but I am going to interrupt now because we have to have an extension of time.
Happy to move an extension of time.
Thank you. Anyone want it? I'm not happy to have an extension of time, but I'm happy to be outvoted.
Someone's got to move it.
Moved by Walker and seconded by Lee. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. No. Unfortunately, it was carried, so you get another opportunity to ask a supplementary question, please.
So my question was, is it possible, given the huge community interest, to have a breakdown for each monga as to the vegetation removal and the re-veg?
I think we can. It's a question of timing.
Thank you.
Very good indeed. Well, you've done very well answering those questions under due duress.
Move the recommendation.
No. I can't quite. No. Thank you.
Well,
all you people who've asked lots of questions.
I don't think I'm
But to allow those other ones.
I'll move it when you're ready.
Who haven't asked a lot. In the fullness of time. Now, Councillor Ferry has a shot, to be followed by others.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the extreme expertise that I know that the Tupuna Maunga Authority team bring to this work, and the deep knowledge that mana whenua hold and very generously share. I was really interested to hear the sort of reflection on the improvement over time that is really relevant here. And I just, acknowledging that this treaty settlement was in 2014, was thinking with 10 years coming up, is there some consideration being given to a bit of celebration of that, a bit of review of, hey, look how far we've come, I've observed a lot of plantings on maunga in my area that have, got way bigger, often in a much shorter period of time than I think many of us thought they would. So is there work going to happen next year on that? Thank you.
That's a great suggestion, and we'd welcome a submission along those lines. I'm sure it'd be happily received by the Tupuna Maunga Authority.
Okay, Councillor Lee, please.
Kia ora kōrua. Thank you. Okay, can I just, I don't want to take up time, just endorse the questions of the other members of the governing body, particularly relating to transparency around budgeting for tree removal and revegetation. You know, and I know, and everyone in Auckland knows that revegetation is not controversial at all. Overwhelming majority of Aucklanders, I'm sure, support the TMA's strategic approach. It's the cutting down of some trees on some maunga that's caused a lot of raru, which all of us, I think, need to avoid. And I think transparency in the accounting for that is going to be helpful. So my plea is, I'm not going to ask the same questions over again. I'm just going to request that you please take that on board and deal with it with due seriousness. So thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fletcher.
Kia ora, Nick. Thank you. And I think the Maunga Authority does deserve to be congratulated on the awards, and it's been really good. Given that a lot of the controversy that has been, or the antagonism with the public, has been the failure to give a breakdown between felling and vegetation on individual maunga, I'm really heartened by what you say today, Nick. Can you confirm that we will start to see that happening for the individual maunga moving forward?
I mean, insofar as this plan is, I would say to you that the authority has adopted this operational plan, and we are talking about taking this documentation to consultation. That's what this document is about. So, in terms of breaking down those inside this plan, I think the authority had that opportunity to look at that before it made the decision to take this to consultation, and this is the plan that has been adopted for consultation. We are.
I'm just a bit confused from the response you gave to Councillor Walker. I was heartened because I thought that's just something that has been called for quite some time, and it would be great to see moving forward. We're adopting this plan today, but moving forward, the indication that might be the way we could work into the future.
There's every potential. I guess what I was trying to say to Councillor Walker was that we are able to provide those numbers that he's asked, but it'll just take a bit of time for us to put those together. But yeah, I just think that we have been quite transparent about it. We've produced these plans every year. I think they're pretty fulsome document, and we've been really transparent about our program. As I said, it's been publicly notified every year, and the intention of the Tupuna Maunga Authority is very clear.
Okay.
And on that, I just want to have the assurance where there have been judicial reviews, have you accounted for the fact that there may be ongoing judicial reviews? Lord only knows, I hope that doesn't, it's not good for the community, it's not good for the Maunga Authority, and it's certainly not good for council, but the provision to be able to respond to those. Do you want to speak to, Nick?
I mean, all I would really say is that we will follow the direction of the courts.
Okay, that's good. I've got Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Dominic. I just want to make sure I sent you guys through some questions last week, and what maybe has been passed on, but it goes to what you talked, and I just want to be sure, Nick, I've got what you said right, because like other people have had queries. So those figures that you gave of the breakdown of the 360, the 310, the 290, that comes out of the 1.1 network-wide vegetation budget removal and reinstatement.
The 290 comes out of our operational budgets. The others do come out of our capital works budget. And I'd note that we are behind in our current operational program at the moment. Oh, sorry, our current capital program at the moment.
Okay, all right, so that comes out of that 1.1, those last two.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay, cheers.
Councillor Watson, are you okay?
No, that's answered it, thanks.
All right. We've got recommendations that the governing body agree the draft Te Puna Monga operational plan for the next year and summary of draft plan for inclusion in the consultation material for the long-term plan. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by Councillor Darby. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, well done. Thank you for excellent responses there, Nick and Dominic.
Thank you.
We are moving to item 16, which is a summary of the confidential decisions and related information.
16 and 17, do them together.
All right, and 17. I don't know why there's a rush. We've extended time. Everyone else has got plenty of questions. I've got 16 questions about these. Hold you back in school. Righto, and 17. Do I have a mover for items 16 and 17?
And Walker.
Deputy Mayor and Councillor Walker. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations for items 16 and 17, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary. And then the enterprise update referred from the Organ and Risk Committee. It has to be, I think that should be nominated by somebody who sat through the August and Risk Committee, which is myself and who. Are there any other survivors of the Audit and Risk Committee here?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm available to.
Oh, good. Well, you can second this, but we're going to have. There's no.
Happy to second.
Yeah.
We're going to be.
Is there anything they want to say in the open?
Actually, we're going to. Is this going to the? What's going to the
Yeah, so
closed?
this is the open report, so that, is there anything to say in the open? Oh yes, they've got some things to say in the open part.
Here, we've got some things you're going to have to endure in the opening before we go into secrecy to discover something or other, which I remember vaguely from last week. But I can't understand why it was so secret because I've already forgotten it. Righto. Ready? Go.
Kia ora koutou. I'll keep this brief. This is our regular 6-monthly enterprise risk update, which goes to the Audit and Risk Committee and then is referred on to the governing body. In this instance, this covers progress of risk management activities over the last 6 months and was reported to the ARC last week. I'll take the report as read and just focus on a couple of highlights. The risk team facilitated a review of Auckland Council strategic risks, which ended with an identification of 9 risks and linked risk descriptions, current controls, actions, and evaluation of ratings. The intention is to keep discussing these risks and have them dynamic along with the ELT every quarter. Another key highlight has been the work that we have done on digital risk registers on SharePoint. And with this work, departments can essentially house and manage their risk registers on the digital platform instead of Excel sheets, adding consistency and efficiency to their existing risk management practices. That covers the highlights, and I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Are there any questions of anybody? We went through this in great detail last week, which is the bit that you're going to have to wait around to see now. And so we're not trying to not take you seriously, but we did take it seriously last week. Councillor Dalton and I paid great attention and even asked questions. Right, on that basis,
It's been moved and seconded.
has been moved and seconded, in which case I'm going to move, put this. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, please say no. And then we're going to have to go into secrecy.
Excuse me, Your Worship, just before we go into confidential, could I just say, I'm sure you join me and everybody else in thanking our support staff who put these lovely meetings online for a great amount of Aucklanders to watch. And also our media people who, I think, deserve a medal for sitting through some of our meetings. So thank you very much for what you do on behalf of Auckland, and have all the best for the season's greetings. Thank you. Right.
This is so confidential that I wasn't given it. I've just been given it now. And I can tell you, having a peek in there, that the Russians would fly through the blitz to read this. But we'll try and do it quickly. I was going to take the opportunity, seeing as we've virtually come to the end of the main thing, to thank those attending, and I was going to thank the crowd, which consisted entirely of Gail Baldock, who's buggered off, even she couldn't stand it any longer, and the press, who have valiantly sat through hours and hours of this year, and in some ways reported it reasonably well, and in some ways not so well, but that's all a matter of opinion. And but then again, so have some of the questions and what have you. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all my councillors around who've endured this year. And there's some prizes for those ones who haven't asked a lot of questions, like Andy Baker and others. And there are some, and despite my reluctance to give out money, I'm going to shout some beers over at the terrace after this. Both the CEO and I are putting a hundy on the bar, so if you want to come over and help yourself, you're welcome to do that, including those that ask interminable questions on every subject. I'll forgive you. Here come the crowd back. All of you, Gail Baldock, we're going to move into secrecy for a few minutes, but if you want to, I hope it's not going to be too long, and then we're going to go over the terrace, and the crowd is welcome to come and have a beer. Okay? The entire public. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sorry, press, that you're going to miss out on this. It's just so secret and exciting. You probably couldn't handle the pressure.
So you've moved, Councillor Simpson's seconded.
All those favour going into secrecy, please say aye. To the contrary?
No.
Yeah, me too, no. Yeah, we're going to make it though.
It's your time. It's very questionable, Mr Mayor, to go into confidentiality.
Well, I voted against it, as did you. But we were outvoted by the...
Can I say, just to Councillor Lee, I'll have a discussion with this team and look at this for future reference and make sure that we're really needing to be in confidential. I think it's because of questions of cyber risk and legal risk and so on. So I'll review it, Mike, if that's okay.
It's a valuable right for the governing body to go into confidential session, but we shouldn't abuse it and use it as a routine mechanism. I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing that would endanger the council's position by sharing this information. That's my view. And sometimes you do need to be in confidential session.
Okay, well, I accept that too, and I think what we will do, we'll look at this, and if ever there was a paper that was questionable, it's got to be this one, but I'm sure you're going to tell us what the secrecy is for us now. For those of you who are online, turn off and come back on in secrecy. And in fact, if you don't come back on, I don't really care. But you're welcome to come back on.